Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Capricorn for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs and other blogs on there to help you make the most of the transits. And if you'd love to learn astrology with me, there may be some slots left in my astrology apprenticeship program. So what's going on in the month of July? We've got a lot going on. We have 2 out of the 3 eclipses of this eclipse season occurring in July. We've been talking about these eclipses because sometimes you can see manifestations before the actual event, so you might have already started to see those by now. But the actual eclipses take place in July, 2 of them. We've got Jupiter going direct, this heavy hitter planet that rules optimism and growth and expansion is going to wake up, and we'll talk about the implications for Capricorn for that. We also have Mars continuing to be in retrograde. We have Mercury going to be in retrograde, and Uranus, recently in Taurus, is in a sign that is highly compatible with the energy of Capricorn. So we're going to talk about that as well. So where to start? Let's talk about Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter rules, like I mentioned, expansion, growth, luck, optimism. When it's retrograde, it's easier for people to be, as it has been for the last 4 months before the beginning of July, it's easier to not be optimistic, and it's easier to not feel supported. And the area of life that it was moving things forward in when it was direct, it may seem like those blessings are not present anymore. So you might have had, and for many of you, this is where it would have been working, actually pretty much for all of you, work. This has to do with career, work, except for you early degree people, you also will see some manifestations in the 11th house. But what I'm about to say is true for all Capricorn placements, okay? So Jupiter has been expanding the 10th house, and the 10th house to do with career, work, things involving your father, authority figures, you as an authority figure, your place out in the world, basically. So as Jupiter wakes up, and sometimes right when that happens, like early July, you might see a job you've been waiting for come in, or a new job come in, or something you've been trying to do with your work working out in a big way. Jupiter tends to want you to do a bunch of different things or do something in a really big way. So either it could be one big manifestation, or it could be like having your irons in a lot of different fires. But in any case, you'll start to see Jupiter waking that sector up for you again. For you early degree placements, and this will be true for you middle and later degree placements months down the line, but the next sector that's going to be accentuated as Jupiter moves direct for you early degree placements is the 11th house. And the 11th house has to do with, well, so basically you can see expansion and forward movement and luck starting to move into friends, friendships, social media, groups, large organizations, teams working together with a group, you as part of a group, anything having to do with advertising or marketing, internet-based projects, things involving innovation, technology, anything having to do with your place out with a group. So if you're trying to move into those arenas in a deeper way, you'll have a lot of support. If you're not, you might notice opportunities are starting to show up there. And this can also relate back to your work, because the friendships and the internet and the social media and all that stuff can directly tie back into the work options. And for those of you who are retired, or who for whom like working and making money isn't of interest, this can have to do with your highest purpose. So what it is that you're doing here, your dharma. So it's relevant for everyone, and it can just manifest in different ways. Okay, so let's talk about Uranus. Uranus moving into Taurus. Uranus changes signs every 7 years or so. As I talked about in the May report, and as we're unfortunately starting to see, is that Earth changes and volatility with the Earth itself, being Taurus is an Earth sign and relates to Mother Earth, is more likely with Uranus in this sign. I didn't expect immediate seismic activity this moment that Uranus moved into Taurus, but we can see it's manifested that way. And along with it, weather changes, any earth and atmosphere related things. And the atmosphere is often secondary to what's happening on the earth, because the Taurus energy is earth energy. So major changes with how we live materially and also the structure, the Earth's crust, etc. A positive manifestation and potential of this transit has to do with gelling things in a material way. And for people with Capricorn placements, this is a really big deal because as Uranus moves through all of the sign or all of the degrees of Taurus, it's going to trine your Capricorn placement. So the more Capricorn placements you have, the more you'll be affected by this. But even if you just have one, somewhere along the next 7 years, you're going to have Uranus making the most positive aspect in all astrology with your Capricorn placement, whether it's your rising sign or your sun or whatever it is. So this can be a time of major manifestation, major fruition, major material gains. The people who are going to be most affected by that now, although manifestation can happen for anyone at any time with this, are you all with your birthdays right at the beginning of the sign. So, you December babies in those first few degrees or first few days or the first, 5 or so degrees if you're watching for your rising sign. This is a really big deal, okay? So look for major changes in fruition there. Something else that is going on is the eclipses, which we talked about. So we're going to talk about where the eclipses are going to hit. All of you have a chance to experience this eclipse energy in the first house. Okay, and some of you, especially early degree placements, you might experience this in the second house, what I'm about to describe, okay? And I'll explain what that all means. First, let's figure out if you're an early, middle, or late degree placement. If your birthday is in the first 10 days of the sign, or your degrees watching for your rising or moon sign is between 0 and 9 degrees, you're an early degree placement. Middle degree people, you're the middle 10 days of the sign, or 10 to 19 degrees, and 20 to 29 degrees for late degree, or the last 10 days of the sign. That is the late degree placement. Okay, so for you early degree placements, you might see this lunar eclipse, this change, major trajectory change occur in your second house. Second house has to do with money, finances, your values. So you could have a sudden change in your material goals, and that can be all of a sudden you're super motivated materially, or it can be all of a sudden you're super not motivated materially and you're moving more towards sustainability or simplification. But something having to do with your values looks like it's coming to an end. That's what lunar eclipses tend to do. They bring things to an end, and that can either just be it's cut off, it's done, or it can be it reaches a culmination and it's finished. That's why it's done. But in any case, something major could be brewing with your money, with how you see things, with your value systems, or some material purchase or material possession. Okay, so you can see an ending, a closing, a coming to fruition, a coming in, something you've been working on could actually come to you and manifest in a big way. There's also, for you early degree placements, you could feel this eclipse in the first house. And again, this eclipse is on July 27th. It's a total lunar eclipse at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. And there is another eclipse on July 12th, which is a partial solar eclipse in Cancer. But I talk about where that eclipse hits you in my June report. So if you want to see the July 12th eclipse, where it's hitting in your chart, then watch my June report. We're focusing on the second eclipse, this July 27th, and the second in July. And then my August report, I'll talk about the August eclipse and where it will hit for Capricorn. But in any case, so the rest of you, including the early degree placements, will experience this, or the early degree placements have a chance of experiencing it here. The rest of the middle to late degree placements, you will definitely have something come up here. And this has to do with your image, your place out not your place out in the world, the way people see you. So maybe you have been an architect, and that is how people see you. What does that person do? They're an architect. Okay, that's your image. You could change jobs. You could change your name. You could change anything or everything about you. How you look to people, how you present yourself, what you're doing with your energy that is related to your image. This can also have to do with a health situation. So it could be that something that was going on health-wise can clear up. You can heal it. You can have a dramatic fruition of health from this. You can also have a dramatic health crisis. So if there's something undercover that you're not aware of that's been going on, or something that you have not addressed but you know is there, it could come up in a big way. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you have any symptoms, you get them checked out, and don't be afraid. This isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to be aware of. This way there's activity in this sector, so you can apply special care here. If there is some sort of health event, then it could this could be part of how the eclipse trajectory change occurs. It could put you on a path to wellness or on a path to health. You could make radical changes in your diet or your lifestyle. So all of those things can be coming from the eclipses. At the same time, we have Mars retrograde, and we have Mercury going to be going in retrograde. So I'm going to talk more about that in the general transit report. I also have blogs about, a blog about Mars retrograde, and a video about Mars retrograde, and a video about Mercury retrograde. So you can search for those things in Annie Botticelli on my channel or in general and find more information about these transits. If you want a written horoscope by me, then you can go to my new site, cozybysweetstarlight.com. It's a lifestyle blog where I have lots of things there. It's very fun, but there are also written horoscopes there, including great reads for each sign. So to supplement this video, if you go to cozybysweetstarlight.com, you can get a written horoscope that sometimes can narrow down some of the information that I give you in an easier way to take in. Okay, so Mars retrograde is still giving you permission to chill and relax. You can be comfortably productive, but try to let things come to you. I'm going to go into more details about how to use these Mars retrograde energies now. So the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The third one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases it brings to fruition things intended or planned. And sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time, and there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit, and there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation, and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over ambitious, unless, of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out, and it's flowing really easily, and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, so we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you've already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives, or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square. And it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So we've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius on the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world, you know. So you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time, is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, B.R. Newman, at IAMHELIOS.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.